This week, we're going to look at some helpful tips that can get you started contributing to open source software. Welcome to another MetPy Monday. Hello, I'm John Lehman, a software engineer for Unidata. This week, I wanted to show you some tips on how you can help us build software. Maybe you found an issue, or maybe you want to get into coding, and one of the great ways to do that is to read through other people's code and make modifications. Maybe there's a feature that you would like to have that's not implemented. Well, you can do that too. So what we're going to do is take a quick look at how to get you set up. We've got other videos on how to use Git and GitHub to make contributions from early in the MetPy Monday series, but we're going to start out by looking at Siphon, though you could always go over and look at MetPy or any of the other projects. A great place to start is by looking at issues. If you're a beginner, you can go to Label and click Good First Issue. And in here, there are all kinds of issues that are tagged with generally suggestions of how you can solve them. So that's a great place to look. You can also file an issue, or you can go look at pull requests and see what other people are working on. But we could look at an issue and pick our favorite one that we want to work on. You'll create a fork of the repository and clone that fork. And again, we've got some videos on those GitHub concepts. But one helpful thing to know is that all these repositories have an environment.yml file. And this tells you that it creates a conda environment for development. So if I pull up my Anaconda prompt, and I'm in the directory of my fork, all I have to do is type conda env create. This is going to go out, and using that file, create an environment for me to do my development work on, in this case, Siphon. This will take different amounts of time depending on what packages are cached on your machine, how difficult the environment is to solve, and so on. Okay, so that's done. So I'm going to type conda activate devel, just like it tells me. And now I'm in a development environment. Now if I open a Python shell here, and I type import Siphon, let's say I want to try something to see if my changes worked, it says module not found. That's because we didn't install Siphon when we created the environment. We don't want to install the current release of Siphon. We want to actually be able to work with a local editable copy. So for that, I'm going to use the command pip install -e dot. So this is going to install what the directory that we're in, hence the dot, an editable version of this package, meaning I can make changes to the code and they're going to be immediately reflected. And now that's done. So now, if I open a Python shell and type import Siphon, we get no problems. I really recommend using an editor like VS Code. This is a free tool and it's an integrated development environment, or an IDE. This has lots of great tools. You can even have a command line in here to do your testing and so on. You can split windows, drag and rearrange things, your whole file trees over here. You can search. There's all kinds of helpful features, rewrapping, commenting blocks, setting breakpoints. There's lots of great things you can do with an IDE. And the nice thing is you don't have to learn it all at once. You can start out just using it as a text editor with some nice syntax highlighting, and it grows with you. And given that VS Code's free, it's really hard to beat. So then you would make your changes in here and commit those changes and create a pull request. And again, we have information on how to do that. But now you've made your change, you've got a pull request, maybe there's a review, and you're ready to do something else. Again, we can go back and look in the issues, or you can dream up your own feature that you would like to have and implement that. But there's one area where we really would like your help, and that's documentation. And I'm not talking about just writing documentation for functions and how they work. We try to do a pretty good job of that as this code is released. But examples, how are you using Siphon? How are you using MetPy? Because there's somebody else that probably wants to use it in a similar way. So that's always a great area to contribute as well. Now, there's one more thing about contributions I'd like to touch, and that's testing. Testing does have this aura of being scary, and it's really not that bad. We're just trying to make sure that what was broken is broken, we can reproduce the issue, and then that our change fixed that and didn't break anything else. Now, when we actually create a pull request, the tests are run automatically, and it tells you what passes and what fails. But for example, Siphon hasn't seen a release in a while. So if I open up my Anaconda prompt here, all I have to do is type PyTest, and it's going to run the test suite for me. We can see that there are actually some failures happening. So this would be a great place to start, is looking at failed tests and seeing what changed. How can we fix that? So now I'm going to go over to MetPy and show you, if you look at the contributing.md file, it's got some tips on setting up your development environment, some of which we've already talked about. Notice it has some dependencies that you need to install for running the tests that are specific for the MetPy tests. I've done that. I'm going to cd into my MetPy repo here and type PyTest. And let's see how MetPy does. Now, MetPy has a lot of tests, so this is going to take a little while to run, and it's going to download and cache some data as well, depending on, again, what you already have on your system. So what you would want to do is, before you make your change, write the test that should pass, make sure it fails first, and then make your change, make sure your test passes, and that all the other tests still pass. This is a process called test-driven development, and it's my personal favorite way to develop code. And again, like I said, the MetPy test suite, if you run the full suite, can take quite some time. The biggest thing is, don't be afraid to make a contribution. Those of us that look at these packages often and use them are happy to help, especially if it's your first contribution, help you understand the process, walk you through it, and we really do appreciate help from community members like you. It makes the package better, it makes the software do exactly what you want it to do, and it helps the developers get to all of the things that happen, because there's a lot of development going on and a lot of things that need the attention of the package maintainers. I hope that you found this useful, and I hope that it encourages you to make your first contribution. We're looking forward to reading your pull request, and I'll see you on next week's MetPy Monday.